Well, welcome back, everybody. My name is Deacon Tom Mashad, and after Mass just the other day, they asked me if I would give my personal testimony at some point, my faith journey. And I thought, well, that sounds like a great video, or that sounds like the next video. So here we go. I hope you enjoy it. This is something I have done before a number of times, different versions of it depending on my audience. If I'm with Extreme Faith Camp or with the youth groups, it's kind of one version. If it's adults, it's another. This is going to be kind of a blend in between, just because you don't want to go too far into detail on some things, right? You don't want to glorify the sin. So let's begin. So let's see. I was born and raised Catholic, the cradle Catholic, as they say. Went to Catholic schools, went to a Catholic church. I was a server. That was my life. And I even thought at one point, I want to be a priest. No, that was a long time ago. That would have been like second, third grade. And obviously that was not my call because I'm not a priest. And I used to pray a lot. And so at night I would have that conversation with God. And it was great. I enjoyed, looking back at that, I really enjoyed that time. And so something changed because I walked away from the faith. When I was young, one of my grandparents died. And so I thought, okay, I better pray now harder for my other grandparents. And so that's what I did. And then one of them got sick and died and passed away. And so I thought, okay, I must be doing something wrong here. So I prayed harder and more often and longer. And that grandparent died as well. And I got mad. I got so mad. I got mad at God. I kept everything in, didn't tell anybody about it at all. But I remember specifically one night being so angry at God and in tears and telling him I hate you. And then I kind of walked away. Now I didn't stop believing in God. Okay, I was just angry with what happened. But like I said, I didn't talk with anybody about it. And I wish I would have, because I think things would have been a little bit different. Before I continue on, I guess this part's going to be to the parents. Listen, if someone passes away in your family, which is going to happen, and you have children, young children, talk to them about it. Even if they don't say anything, you need to talk to them about it. Because I know me, I didn't say anything about it at all. My parents were clueless because I remember it was maybe 10 years ago when I told them about this, and maybe it was longer than that, but I told them this and they were shocked because they're like, we didn't know, I wish we would have. And I'm thinking, well, I guess I probably should have said something, but I was young, 5th, 6th grade. So what's the point? Talk with your kids about this. Just kind of bring it up, see how they're doing on things like this. Just keep talking with them. Keep praying with them. Because, people grieve differently. Some people really like to talk about it. Others just need to internalize it. But either way, when it's new to the kids, talk with them about it. All right. Sorry, I'll go back. So I walked away from my faith. Now, it doesn't mean, again, that I stopped believing in God. Because I believed in God. I was just angry with him. But my life kind of changed. So what did I start to do? I still went to church, right? Because my parents went every Sunday. So that's what I did. Still confirmed. I still was the altar server because that's what I was supposed to do. But still angry, still mad at God, and really didn't practice my faith at all. I went to church, but I wasn't praying. I got confirmed. I really didn't do anything that you're supposed to do during confirmation. Well, I'm not proud of that. I'm always impressed with people who say they're born and raised Catholic, never left their faith, they love their faith. I always find those stories just amazing because that's not mine. Mine is complete opposite. So during school, I got into sports, got into my friends, and studied little. And that was pretty much what I did from 7th, 8th grade on, all the way through high school. That was my life. So it was the partying, it was the sports, and it was my friends. And again, very little studying. I'm not going to go into much detail on that at all. I'm not going to glorify the sins, but I'm not at all happy with my choices, proud of the choices I made, but they were my choices. I just really remembered walking away and just hiding my pain in the things that I did. Just keeping as busy as possible, but with things that I thought would make me happy. And they gave me a glimpse of happiness, but it sure wasn't true happiness because it just kept leading into worse and worse things with the partying, with the sports and things. So yeah, not happy about that. I remember before all of that happened, I remember thinking what I wanted to do with my life, being a pilot, all those things, wanting to study, good grades, and that went right out the window. Yeah, the decisions you make, right? Sometimes we think the decisions we make in the past define us, and we can't get out of it. We did something, so oh well. Well, and then we're just gonna have to deal with it our whole life. Well, we can learn from those mistakes, learn from those experiences, and I know I did. I so learned from them. But something in high school really hit me. And it's like, what are you gonna do for the rest of your life? Now, these weren't conversations I was having with my friends. This was just an internal conversation. When I go for walks or something around my neighborhood, when I climb trees, I just go out into the woods, go dirt bike riding, things like that. I just start thinking about these things. And it's like, what are you gonna do? And I had no answer to that at all. I was like, no college is gonna let me in. I don't know what I want to study. We don't have much money at all, so it's not like I can afford it. So what am I gonna do? And I thought, well, I'm gonna join the military. And that's what I did. So at 17, I went to the recruiter's office and said, I wanna join. And he goes, what do you wanna be? I thought, I wanna be an MP, because I want to be a police officer. Didn't end up being a police officer, but at the time, that's what I was thinking about. So, and then thinking about all the stuff that I did in my past, and now I'm thinking about being an MP, cop. That was interesting to think about. I go in there, and at 17, if you didn't know this, your parents have to sign off on a sheet before you can get accepted, because I wasn't 18, wasn't an adult, right? So the recruiter comes to the house and sits down at our dining room table, and I still remember this. There's my mom and my dad. The recruiter says, you need to sign this. My dad, I don't think, could have jumped fast enough at that paperwork to sign it and write his name down. And mom was like, I'm not signing this. She's just, all she was thinking is her baby, because I'm the youngest of 4, is going into the Army. Not reserves, not guard. He's going active duty. No one in my family, like my dad retired a first sergeant in the reserves. My brother retired in the reserves now. I was the first one going active. And she was not too happy about that. And I remember they walked away from the table and they're talking. I overheard my dad say, listen, you need to sign this paperwork because it's the best thing for him. And at the time, I was like, what? But now looking back, he was right. Okay, Dad, did you hear that? You were right. Okay? I said it. So he was so right about it. It was the best thing for me. After graduating high school, surprised I graduated, 8 days after graduation, I'm on a plane for the first time, away from my family for the first time. I'm in tears, and I'm off. And I'm off to basic training down in Alabama. Hot summer, away from home, homesick, have no idea what I'm really in for. Here we go. But still mad at God. Still angry, I'm not praying now. I'm thinking, who needs you? I got this, I've got this, Lord. I don't need you at all. I'm gonna figure this out. And then you know what's funny? I end up going to church. So why did I do that? Well, there's this little saying that I've heard. There's no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole. Meaning, when the bullets start flying, you start praying. And though bullets weren't flying in basic, it was so new for me. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna pray because Lord, I need you, but I'm still mad at you. So there. And I even joined the choir on Sunday masses. So I'd get up early. I could have slept in on those days, but didn't. Went to church, sang. And I remember at the end of basic at AIT, Dad came down for the graduation ceremony. He's proud. Friend came down. They thought that was cool. And then they're giving out some awards, and one of them is I got the certificate for being in the choir, and my dad was just like, what? So he was proud that I did it, but yeah, you can see his face going, you did what? But again, after basic and AIT, I stopped going to church again, okay? Because again, now it's kind of a job, off to California, you know, we got this worked out. Now we're talking 1990. So, you know, California, what's the big show? 90210. So I've got the hair, I've got my motorcycle, I'm driving up and down Highway 1, playing volleyball, doing those things. This is awesome. So, I mean, there were some good times with that. Had made some great friends, really enjoyed it, but God, I pushed him away again and said, I got this. But then when times got tough, I started praying and saying, Lord, you got to look over me. You know, you have to. So thinking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, there I am in the military. And then all of a sudden I'm going to get deployed out to Panama. Was there in the jungles for 4 months. This is after the Panamanian invasion, so didn't see any action there, but saw what happened afterwards. I got to see everything of that. You know, the bullet holes and big holes in the buildings. It was interesting, an eye-opener, but also in a third world country. And I've got some pictures of that one. I wonder if I can find them, of just what it looked like. Nothing I have ever experienced in my life. I remember being there for 4 months thinking, oh my gosh, here I am 18, and I didn't even know the world was like this. And it woke me up. I've been woken up many a times, but that was a point in my life where I was like, oh my gosh, I take so much for granted. I'm never going to take it for granted again. And then what happens? Go back to base in California after 4 months and fall right back into the same old thing. Still pushing God aside, but asking him to help me when I need him. Then go to Korea. Wasn't going to church. Things were going pretty good. I enjoyed it. Seeing another country, you know, now 19, 20, 21, somewhere in there, trying to remember how old I was. But it was so interesting, and I loved it. Just the experience, being from Seoul down to Busan, Seoul up north by the parallel, the Busan all the way down below, all over that, South Korea, and enjoying the culture. It was pretty neat. And it was at that time I started taking college classes, and I was like, this is cool. I was getting A's. I'm like, so that's all it took to get good grades was pay attention in class, read the assignments, and I was getting A's. That was little study. Just doing the work, and I was getting A's. I was like, okay, I like school now. Didn't in high school, but now I'm taking some college classes and really liking it. So I took as many as I possibly could. And it was all on kind of police stuff, criminal justice, things like that. One of them was hostage negotiation. That was an interesting class. Going through the military, still away from church. Now it's coming towards the end of third year, and so now I've been from all over the place. So Alabama, New Mexico, California, Panama, Korea. And this is under 3 years. My last year, they sent me close to home. They wanted me to re-enlist. End up at Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. I really enjoyed that post. That was pretty neat. It was the first time I wasn't out in the field. So from the jungle to the field, things like that. This is the first time I was in garrison. So I was in the post patrolling. That's all I did. That was awesome. I wasn't even assigned, you know, half the stuff that I always got assigned when I showed up at a new base. You can tell it's been a while since in the military. So I didn't half the gear that I was so used to be out in the field. I wasn't given any of it because we didn't do that. So that was interesting. I actually was taught stuff on post from the Wisconsin State Patrol. That was a lot of fun as well. So all these experiences. But then that year is when something changed. And that something was, I met this woman who loved her faith, who went to church, went to Bible studies, went to other things, and we started dating. Things happen when you meet somebody, right? So she loved her Catholic faith, and I wanted to be around her, so I started going back to church when I was back home. So almost every weekend I was coming back. We go to church because that's what she wanted to do, and that's what she did, and so of course that's what I did. I know I'm not the only one that's done that. I went through the motions, still mad. Now think about it. If you remember a little bit ago what I was mad about. I was very upset that three of my grandparents died pretty close together. And that's what I'm mad at. And there I am, like 21-ish, and that's what I'm still mad at. But I just stopped thinking about it. You stop going to church so that habit stops. I know many people have fallen into that. There's my wife Terry, or girlfriend Terry, going to church, so I went. I still remember the first time walking into our old church, so we grew up together, okay? Not gonna say who's older. So, one of us was older. Anyway, we've known each other our whole life, right? So, elementary school. One's in first grade, one's in third grade. And we went through school. So I was new to Harry. I knew her family, that Catholic school through 8th grade. And then, I almost said who was older. So then you go through middle school, high school, and, we still knew each other, knew the family, but never dated at all. That 2 years difference in high school is pretty big, right? But now when one's out of college, one's last year in the military, so I knew I was getting out of the military. I'm not re-upping, taking more college classes, coming home on the weekends, we're dating, I'm going to church again, but not praying, really not paying attention in mass. Just, okay, it's something we're gonna do because that's what my girlfriend's doing, so that's what I did. Well, obviously then after the military, I went to University of St. Thomas. So, not obviously. So I went to University of St. Thomas is where I ended up, the school I took the school I chose. And one thing I was upset about St. Thomas is they made you take theology classes and philosophy classes. I was like, wait a minute, I'm spending how much money? Again, I paid for it. Yeah, I had the GI Bill, but that was nothing like it is today. Nothing. Paying for it myself, trying to figure out this college thing, and now you're going to tell me how much money I'm spending on the school, what classes I actually have to take? You got to be kidding me. But you have to, and I loved them. I couldn't believe it. So here I am, upset that I have to go to these classes, Theo 101, and I so enjoyed it, because as I'm upset with God, now I'm going to church again, but all these questions that I had about my faith, I'm starting to learn the answers. And I'm just eating this up. I'm like, okay, why do we believe what we believe? Why do we do what we do? Tell me about my faith. And I just kept eating it up and eating it up and eating it up. And I got excited. So I didn't just take one class or two classes. I was taking as many as I could. And the philosophy classes, they were great. Never thought I would like it. And I'm getting good grades. And, from high school, where parties and sports is what I did, that was making me happy, and it wasn't. It's just kind of deadening the pain back then. Now I'm into college and really enjoying these classes, getting good grades, meeting some great people, dating a wonderful woman. At the end, I think I was one class away from getting a minor in theology. And actually my last class was, I don't know how I even got into this. I got into an honors New Testament class, and that was cool. The papers that we did for that one, the studying we had to do, going into Ireland Library and looking at all the archives there, and cool. There's a place I'd always go and study in that library. I wouldn't go to the main one. I'd go to the little library on South Campus. Found this little nook in the corner, and that's where I always studied. At the time, I didn't. Now if I go back there, I saw their seminarians would be there. They'd have their name or something on, at least last time I went, it was a few years ago. They had their names, and it's like there's their study place or something, but back then they weren't doing it. And I kind of took over one area and just really enjoyed it, being in that environment. And God was working with me. He really was. He was patient with me, very patient. And the graces that kept pouring upon me during that time were amazing. I didn't recognize them at the time, but I knew I was getting excited about my faith because I was learning my faith. asking my girlfriend tons of questions. And I got out of there in 3.5 years out of St. Thomas. Went to school full-time, worked over 50, 60 hours while going to school full-time. It was like, get me out of here. Got engaged my last year, and then we got married. And it was during that time we started continued going to church with one another, which was great. Found a parish, because we're the closest one to us at the time. She was going to Bible studies, and I thought, okay, I want to go too. Let's just see. So I started asking questions of the priests and other people about what my questions were and why we do things, and I was just getting excited. But my wife kept asking me during this time, will you go to this Crucio weekend, this retreat? And I'm like, I'm not going there. I'm too busy. Because even though I was going back to church again, still wasn't really paying attention. And not proud of this, but all I was doing was work. And all I was thinking about was money. That was it. Because I thought, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to provide. And my wife and I, now at the time, Terry, were married, within a year. Like for the first year, I was thinking, Terry and I talked about this. At some point when we had kids, and we're hoping soon, when we had children, that one of us would stay home with the kids. That's all I was thinking, is we got to make as much money as we possibly can so we can afford to have kids. And we actually talked about, let's hold off on having kids until we can afford it. What? I look back at myself going, what were you thinking? Because after we talked about that, we said that, it was like 6 months later, we looked at each other and went, that's so dumb. Can you really ever afford kids? So wanted to have kids, and pretty quickly Terry became pregnant. We were all excited, our first child. Then my faith, now it's becoming more important, because now we're having kids. So now I'm really thinking, okay, we got to go to church, right? This for the kids. Now the sacraments, are going to come in. We got to do that, because that's what you do, instead of what we want to do and we want to give to our kids. It's just, to me, I was like, it's what we got to do. So, because that's what I did. And I don't know if you've ever been there or not, but that's where my head was. So now I'm thinking, okay, Terry's pregnant. Now with our first child, I need to work even more. So I worked and set goals for myself and hit those goals. And I was making more money than I thought I could ever do at that time. I thought I was doing really, really well, right? And we were on paper. I look back at this going, what are you thinking? But I had the country club memberships, the golf memberships, the fancy car, that type of thing, and thinking, I've made it. I'm doing what makes me happy, or what the world told me would make me happy, and I was not happy. Because the more I worked, the more I made, but the more I made, the lifestyle I wanted, so the more I worked, and I wasn't home, and first child is born, and I'm rarely home. Not proud of that at all. And then my world got rocked. I became unemployed. And it wasn't a short term. It was 7 months. So this would have been when the IT bubble hit. I got let go. And that was hard, because everything that I thought made me a man, the provider, we could have all these good things, disappeared. Totally disappeared. So 7 months unemployed, doing everything I can to find a job, and couldn't find one. So I did anything and everything I could. So, collecting unemployment for the first time, trying to get any job I could, part-time jobs, driving jobs, delivering stuff jobs, anything to make money. Because remember, my wife's not working now. That was tough, That was really tough. But before that happened, my wife and I said, okay, I heard a sermon and it was awesome about we need everything that we receive is a gift from God, and we need to give back. And, I've heard that so many times in a homily, but it just hit that day. And so we were given to the church, so we offered more every week. And at the time it was easy because I was making money, right? And now I'm unemployed, and we need that money. we need to pay for diapers. Our savings account is like this. And because we were spending, right, not saving at that time. And that was tough. But we made that decision during that 7 months. We're still going to give the same exact amount. You know how hard it was to write out that check every week thinking, I need to feed my family. I need to put diapers on my child. That was tough. That was really tough. And we were expecting thinking about this, we were expecting our second child at that time. I remember at some point during that 7 months of employment, I can't figure out exactly where it was, but it was probably within 3 months of me doing everything I possibly can, relying on myself, being proud, afraid to ask for help. And I remember, like clear as a bell, I remember putting our oldest, Anna, to bed in the crib, kissed my wife goodnight, and I went downstairs. And I sat on our couch, the TV's off, and I remember saying, Lord, I need your help. I can't do this without you. And just started to cry. And I think that was probably the most heartfelt prayer I prayed since I was in 2nd or 3rd grade. Because I meant it. And I had a conversation with him, with God at that point. Me talking, him listening, and just told him how I felt. And all the junk that I did and what I was sorry for. And just like, Lord, I need you. I want you back in my life. I surrender. I've gone through life pushing you aside, saying, I'm going to do it with this. I can do this. And how miserable I was during that time. Trying to fill that hole in my heart with stuff the world was telling me would make me happy. And I had what the world told me would make me happy. I had the money, I had the cars, I had the house, I had the golf membership. And I was so miserable. All I was doing was working to have the stuff and not with my family. And it was during that time of unemployment that I realized it. That everything that I thought made me a man didn't make me a man. And I finally could admit it and ask God for help, and I asked him back into my life. Now, I wish I could say everything was perfect after that, but it wasn't. So, because if it was like 2 or 3 months in unemployment, I had another 4 months in front of me of unemployment. But I went into it completely different. I went into it with complete trust. Didn't know what was going to happen. Still writing out that check, though we needed the money ourselves for, the food and the diapers. But I was at peace with it. It was unbelievable. My prayer just kicked in. The Bible studies I was going to really ramped up. My participation in Mass was unbelievable. Instead of me sitting back saying, okay, priest, you better entertain me. Come on, music, you better entertain me. I was now sitting where I used to sit in the very back row of Mass, and anytime my daughter at the time would just squeak, I'd quickly stand up and walk out of Mass and stand back there, right? I was there, I was doing what I was supposed to do, but now I was participating in Mass. I was soaking it all in. It's like I was looking at it for the first time and couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was watching the Bible and Revelation just show up in front of me. I couldn't believe it. One of the Bible studies I was in was Revelations. One was John. One was Mark. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing, what I was hearing. The words in consecration, the words in Mass from the Bible. And I was finally recognizing it. Remember what I said before? Cradle Catholic? I didn't even know my faith. And there I was just loving it now, wanting it, just soaking it all in. It was great. And after that moment, I just kept going and kept going and kept going and loved it. Going to any Mass I could. And at the time, my wife kept asking me, will you go to a Crucio weekend, please? I kept saying no, still, because now I'm looking for a job, right? Trying to find one. End up finding one, and I'm actually didn't go to school for anything like this. I now own a company. It's just crazy. I just think it's so funny. They had to convince me to work for them, because I couldn't figure out, you want me to do what? What that thing? It's a flooring company. Never thought I'd go from IT to flooring. Like, what? But it's what I did, and I enjoyed it. Couldn't believe it. So enjoyed it. Did really well in it. Made the President's Club was invited to the President's Club to see what it was like my first year. Went into the President's Club the second year, and the third year I think I was one of the top 2 salespeople in it. So that was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. And the crazy thing is, during that time, I started to kind of fall back a little bit. Now I didn't have the money. Now I'm making money, and I'm starting to make more money, which was weird. I didn't expect that. And I kind of fell back a little bit. Started working more, because we had no savings left, trying to save, trying to do those things. But something wasn't right. And it was at that point when I started to go back a little bit on studying my faith, trying to learn about my faith, kind of step back from the Bible studies. I was being very successful in this new job and stopped relying on God during this time. And I started relying on myself again. Not happy about that, but I did. But it was at that time my wife looked at me, and I'll never forget this. And friends were over, great friends of ours. They're actually the godparents of one of our children. And she goes, I'm going to ask you again, this is going to be my last time. Will you go to a Cursillo retreat? And I saw the look on her face, and I thought, okay, I'll go. I'll go to the next one. When is it? And she said, it's this weekend. And I'm like, oh no. I just promised I'm going to this. So I went. And just before that, I couldn't believe it. Just before I went on this retreat, I got the biggest job. And I did all commercial flooring. That's all I did. And it was huge. It was huge. It was a $500,000 job. And I'm thinking, I got so much work this weekend to do, but I promised, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go on this retreat. I'm going to bring my work with me. I'll bring my laptop. And I know there's going to be free moments. So during those free moments, I'll just do my emails, do some work. I'll do that. Well, little did I know that so is not what happened. What ended up happening is I met some wonderful people, wonderful men on this retreat. I heard some unbelievable talks by men and their personal stories of where they were and where they are now. And I was like, I'm not alone. I thought I was the only one that felt like this and went through things like this. And there I was hearing for the first time, I'm not. There's so many other people that have gone through this. And I heard their stories. And I remember one night I couldn't sleep because I was hearing these stories and I just couldn't sleep at all because I was thinking about all the stuff in my past, all the things I'm not proud of, all the sins, and it was keeping me up. It was really keeping me up. So I got out of my cot and kind of wandered around. I just couldn't sleep, so I was going to go for a little walk and ended up going into this little area. Later I found out it was an adoration chapel. I never went into an adoration chapel ever in my life. And there I was. And I just knelt down in front of this big thing that I realized was called a monstrance. And inside of it was the Eucharist. There was Jesus in the Eucharist. And I just prayed. And I said, all these other people were there. And I'm like, who are these people? Because I don't see them from this weekend. Little did I know those people there were praying for all of us going on this retreat. I remember saying a prayer like, Lord, what do you want from me? I'm feeling all these emotions. I'm keeping them in the best I can, trying not for tears to go at all. What do you want from me? I didn't hear anything out loud, but internally it was just like, I want you. And that moved me. I was probably there for a good hour or two. Finally was getting tired and went back to sleep. The next day, they had an opportunity to go to confession. And man, was I nervous, because last time I went to confession was when I was like 5th or 6th grade. I forgot how to go. I was scared to go. To admit to somebody, to a priest, all that I've done, scared me. But I was getting moved to it. Something was moving me to go. And it was the Holy Spirit, there's no doubt about it. And I finally just got in line. One of the first people in there walked in and said, Father, it's been so long, I don't know how this goes. He was so patient, walked me right through it. He goes, why don't you start? And I said, well, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been 20 some years since my last confession. And I swear I was in there for a half hour, if not longer, just letting it go and giving it up and crying. Tears just kept coming. It was unbelievable. And I walked out of there. Felt like this ton of weight came off my shoulders. I couldn't believe it. But not all the weight. So I held one thing back. Just because, I did. But I knew you're not supposed to. We need to confess all of our sins, right? We need to get it all out there. And if you willfully hold something back, sin's not forgiven, right? Something was moving me. It just kept like, come on, you got to get this out. It was internally, it was a struggle happening within me going, don't go to confession. Don't do it. You went already. Don't worry, but you just left one thing out. And the other side of me going, but you need to get it out. You need to confess that sin. It's holding you back. And I'm like, it's just one. So this internal struggle is happening. I'm hearing another man's talk happening in front of me. And all of a sudden, in the middle of this talk, I just stood up, went for the door, grabbed the priest by the shoulder and said, you need to come with me. And he's like, whoa, what? We go out in the hallway. I go, I need to confess something. He's like, okay, let's go over here. I was ready to just blurt it out and let everybody hear me, but he's went in there. He goes, okay, let's do this. So I confessed that thing, and I couldn't, I felt weight leave me before. I had no weight on my shoulders anymore. I felt so free. It was unbelievable. I can't describe the feeling I felt. And as soon as I let that go, the peace I felt was unbelievable. And the joy in my heart was awesome. And that was like day 1.5 of this retreat, of a 3-4 day retreat. So a lot was happening. And I was just overjoyed and smiling. And I'm not the only one that was like that. Met a group of guys that became great friends for a long time, and to share with them the story and what I went through, and they're sharing with me the same thing, and we're all like, man, I thought I was the only one. And so it was cool. And it was that night I got moved. Hey, pray the rosary. Well, I can do this. So I started. I did the beginning part really well, but I got to the first Hail Mary. So I got the first prayer out pretty good. Got the Our Father out pretty good. Got to the first Hail Mary. I got about 4 words in and I forgot how to pray it, because I haven't prayed it forever, right? I was going to church, I was studying, I was put God back into my life, but I never prayed a Hail Mary since I was a kid. I got mad at myself. I kept trying. It's like 5th time. I couldn't remember it. And I said, that's it. So I reached down, found a prayer card of the Hail Mary, and I prayed it. And I said, there. And I remember from that day on, for years and years and years and years, I prayed a rosary every day. It was awesome. Loved it. Then I remember coming back from that retreat, and I walked in the house. The kids were asleep. Still had 1 child at the time. Terry was pregnant almost ready to, she was 8 months pregnant, and it was her turn to go on the retreat the next weekend. So I get back and I look at my wife and I said, come here, I got something to share with you. She goes, what? I said, I've got this. She goes, what do you mean? I said, I've got this. I'll lead the family. You've been doing it for so long, leading me to the church, making sure our daughter's going to church. I've got this. And she looked at me, her shoulders just went down. She looked up and goes, thank God. And then I shared with her the stuff that I shared with her, and she just kept looking at me. I'm like, what? She goes, who are you? Big change happened. So that's the end of this video. Hope you liked it. I will get part 2 coming next. So God bless. Keep praying and keep serving.